Welcome everyone to another CoH2 replay cast. This time we're going to have another game from CoH2.org. It's going to be sent in by Radesh, playing on the eastern spawn at CoH2 as Wehrmacht. And his enemy is going to be on the west side, playing as the Soviets, Fangish. So we have CoH2, of course, 1v1 map. Now, what about this map? The map has, of course, the victory points in some very spread out locations, with 2 fuel points that are very much in the middle of the map for both players, but that they are covered by 2 cutoffs that are fairly vulnerable to just flanking maneuvers and just generally decap attempts. So whenever you're playing this map, you always have to watch out for the cutoff. The 2 munitions points are in very vulnerable locations, this one near a lot of heavy cover and a building, and this other one in red cover. So very easy to have your units caught trying to cap these points. You need to be very careful when you're trying to capture the munitions on this map, or else you might end up just having your troops being shot up as they're taking the points for you. Now, looks like Fangish is going to go for 2 conscript squads in the beginning. That's going to help us map control a little bit, but it's also going to decrease his ability to fight the enemy just compared to a tier 1 opening with some penals. But we will see how he can manage to use his infantry. Conscripts are all about positioning in the early game. They can do fairly well against German infantry, but they aren't quite as good as other allied infantry squads. Of course, at close range, they can put quite a number down on Grenadiers especially. And at long range, if they have the cover advantage, such as right now, they can do fairly well. So far, the engagement has been pretty even. The first engagement, of course, resulting in 1 Soviet casualty and maximum range from these Grenadiers, shows how the conscripts, even with superior cover, can have a bit of trouble against Grenadiers. Now, in the south, it doesn't look like an MG42 is going to attempt to capture the munitions point. This is not exactly the best spot to put an MG42. I would have preferred the MG42 to be placed in the middle or in the north of the map because it's much more open, a lot less line of sight blockers. Now, good usage of the Grenadiers at maximum range, but the second sponsor squad is going to get into close range and start peppering the Grenadiers at very close range. Now, the second squad should actually attempt to move up, even with its very low HP. It's definitely scared to go into the red cover. Radesh is not going to focus fire the wounded squad in the beginning. He's going to take out almost the second squad. First Grenadier is going to have to be retreated. Now some Pioneers are actually going to come in from the south to assist, and these conscripts are going to be forced back. Engagement is going to be won by Radesh, but only by a sliver. And the second Grenadier squad is going to attempt to capture some points in the north along with the Pioneers. Now it looks like in the south the MG42 was attempting to make some pushes, but it was pulled off to go into the church. Church in the center of the map is a very important strategic point, but it's also very prone to be flanked, especially from this side of the map because of this bush that is going to be a nice shot blocker for any infantry units bold enough to approach the church. So that's a good way to flank that building. Now in the south, at least the decap was achieved by Fangish, and Fangish has taken a lot of losses, but he has been able to at least keep a little bit of a map control lead over his opponent. He's got 2 victory points to the enemy 0 and 1 fuel point to the enemy 0. Fuel points because of the fact that he has managed to decap the point in the center. So the cutoff is going to help him out in the short run. Now, he's got 3 very interesting commanders, anti-infantry tactics, guard motor coordination, and Soviet Reserve Army. Soviet Reserve Army is my favorite of the 3, but that's just personal preference. The best one, in my opinion, is guard motor coordination. Now, 2 Grenadier squads are going to be flanking this one conscript and forcing it to retreat, thus allowing Radesh to actually gain the control of the 2 munitions points on the map. So that's going to help him out very much later on when he has tier 1, or rather battle phase 1 unlocked, which is going to allow him to upgrade his Grenadiers with LMGs. And the LMGs, as you can see, we already have the first one being upgraded. 3 Grenadier squads of LMGs are going to be able to easily deal with any infantry force that the Soviet player decides to bring out. And we're also going to have rifle grenades being very common sight on the battlefield. First rifle grenade going to deal 2 losses to the Storm Counter squad, so not exactly the most highest return for investment, but still a pretty decent way to force one squad to retreat from the engagement. Of course, the Grenadier squad of LMGs that's also Ved 1 and was forced to retreat by the Flamethrower pop and the flanking attack of this one Consul squad. Now, Radish has been very active on the map in the south in these last few minutes, which is exactly what he wants to be doing if he's starting to gain the advantage as he is. He's also gone for a tier 2, so he's in a pretty good position, and right now I would definitely go for a 2-2-2 or perhaps even 2 2-2-2s to just increase the map control even further and push the enemy, put as much pressure down as possible in the early stages of the game, because right now the Soviets are struggling in terms of resources. They have managed to regain the at least the control of the field point, and they're going to recap it after the German player had decapped it very skillfully. Now, we also have this other attempt by this one Grenadier squad, and it's going to be supported by MG42. MG42 actually suppressing the conscripts going to allow the Grenadiers to escape, but there's also a flanking maneuver from the Soviet player. It's going to actually capture the house and flank the MG42, so it was a good play to just avoid the disaster that was this MG suppressing his men. Of course, the squad is going to be forced to retreat, and we also have another conscript squad forcing their way down bottom and trying to do some harassment, which is exactly what the Soviet player needs to be doing to split off the German forces, perhaps even draw to 2-2-2 from the center. 2-2-2 starting to take its first pot shots against the Soviet units, and we also have the Pioneers taking the cutoff point, so that is a really good play from Radish. And yeah, that's going to allow him to just reduce the Soviet income that much further, and it's going to help him out very greatly in the long run. Now, some guard squads are on the field, and the guards are going to be pretty good at dealing with this 2-2-2. Now, the 2-2-2 is going to be, in general, hard to deal with if Pangish doesn't go for AT grenades anyway, despite the guards. Because the guards, yes, they can do quite a bit of damage to 2-2-2, but they are going to be hard-pressed to kill it because of its just generally excellent mobility. The ability that it has to evade the PTRSs is pretty high. Now, Nice S Minefield is actually going to deal a lot of damage to guards, and one other console squad being wiped out by this Grenadier squad of LMGs. So that is a nice play by Radish. Going to take out one squad and almost take out the guards. So a pretty good start for the Germans for their mid-game. And the second Grenadier squad that was very close to dying is going to be able to retreat fairly easily to base. That's really good. Now, I think Radish is making a mistake over here with his Panzer Grenadier purchase. I feel like Panzer Grenadiers on this map aren't very needed because the long ranges favor Grenadiers much more than they do Panzer Grenadiers. Panzer Grenadiers, of course, being much more adapted to close range, will be fairly useful in the south, but in the north, where there's pretty much only long range, that's going to be fairly hard to use them correctly. Now, good use of the extra infantry squads that Pangish has by doing some nice decapping in the south. Again, I would really like to see AT grenades out of him, along with perhaps a tier 3. Again, if Pangish would have had the AT grenades at this point, he would have had many opportunities to just snare this armored car and prevent it from just running around and taking out all his squads. Now, good job by the Pioneers. Even though they were wounded, they were kept north and they decapped everything, and now they are just retreating back to base before any kind of Soviet units can come in to respond. And that's exactly what you want to do with those weaker units. Just come in, harass, and retreat as quickly as possible back to base. Now, MG42 is going to be definitely very important to keep the south side of the map under their control for the Germans because of the Soviet squads just being so very active for now. He will need to have that machine gun be alert at all times. And again, the Panzer Grenadiers, yes, at close range they can do fairly well, but even in... what? Grenade? Okay, if you say so. There were no grenades, but okay. Yeah, even in just approaching, they took quite a lot of damage because of the absence of cover, so that's something to be remembered whenever you use Panzer Grenadiers. Now, the Flamethrower is going to be very important to deal with the sort of closer range units like the Panzer Grenadiers, but also the units that decide to hide into buildings. But for now, Flamethrower is being used to recapture the center VP. Of course, it's going to be first backed by the MG42. MG42 should actually be brought up up to about here to help with the attack on the cutoff. Now, 2nd Grenadier Squad is trying to get back into heavy cover, but the conscripts are going to be able to flank around, and possibly they're going to go for the victory point. I would have definitely gone for the house to prevent the enemy from capturing it for themselves. We do actually have a T-70 from the tier 3 that Fangish decided to build, and the T-70 is going to be a very important tool for the Germans because right now Radish doesn't have any AT. The 222 is pretty good against the T-70, but only one 222 is going to lose against the T-70. It would need to have a companion to actually stand a chance to win the fight against the T-70. Of course, a pack gun would be much better long run, a much better solution in the long run to deal with the T-70 problem, the 2nd 222. So I feel like Radish, as soon as he saw the T-70, he should have started the production of a pack gun from his tier 2. He does have tier 3 available to him, but it will be a while before he can actually build perhaps a Stug, perhaps a, I don't know, Panzer IV to deal with the T-70. The Stug will be at 90 fuel, so it will take about a couple of minutes, 1 minute and a half to actually have enough fuel to get a Stug. And even then, the Panzer IV would be a better solution anyway, so that would add another extra minute, so 2 minutes and a half, plus the production to bring out that vehicle. So this is just a lot of time where the T-70 is pretty much all by itself, and it's going to be able to just tear a bloody path through every German unit that is around. And that's not going to be good. Now, Soviet player is starting to finally recapture the points in the north side of the map, just as the Germans recapture the south side of the map, so we had a bit of a map switch. Now, the guards are going to be able to capture the church. That's going to be pretty good because of the fact that the church not only provides protection, but also a lot of line of sight, as you can see. And that's really good also because Radish went for mobile defense, and he's going to probably look to bring out a Puma. And the extra line of sight that this church provides, if the Soviet player can hold it, is going to be able to just warn him of the approach of the Puma much earlier and allow his T-70 more time to escape. Now, the guards are going to be forced to retreat by the combination of the 222 and some Grenadiers. One of the Grenadier squads took a lot of damage in the meantime, though, probably because of just pot shots from the T-70 and the PTRSs from the building. Excellent rounds from the T-70, actually going to wipe one extra Grenadier squad, so not exactly the best moment for Radish. Should be very careful whenever there are vehicles that are particularly good against infantry. Now, one other way in which Radish is attempting to counter the T-70 are these Panzer Grenadiers with Panzerschrecks. Of course, they are a pretty good counter, but at the same time, they are fairly vulnerable to Soviet infantry units, so not exactly the most efficient way to spend your munitions. Now, some conscripts, again, really suffering the lack of AT grenades. Good play, though, by Fangish. He's still harassing the south, and he has managed to get a triple cap going, so he's going to be able to very quickly lead the VPs off the Germans if Radish cannot muster a quick response. And looks like so far he hasn't been able to, but there is a flamethrower pioneer in the north trying to recapture the northern VP. Now, good play with the Puma, trying to deal as much damage as possible to the T-70. There is a Zis gun, though, however, attempting to snipe the Puma to oblivion. And that's going to definitely force the Puma back, especially over the long-range firing space that there is in the center. No, not much happening. Sorry for the little snippet. Not much happening, just a little bit of a skirmish in the center, but I would definitely be worried if I was Radish right now, because of his losing that one Grenadier squad will be a very big problem for him, because he had the infantry superiority and now he doesn't. So now he will have to look to alternative ways to actually push through and do some damage to the enemy. Now, good play with the Grenadiers attempting to flank the T-70. Is actually going to discover an engineer placing mines, so fortunate for him, he's going to be able to just destroy the engineers before the mine is laid. Good play with the Panzer Grenadiers actually bringing in from the side along with the Grenadiers, so a nice combined assault along with the Puma as well was attempting to make its advance, but finally Fangish has upgraded anti-tank grenades and the Puma was mismicroed because the T-70 was already dead. There was no need for the Puma to actually just charge in and kill itself. Good play also with the anti-tank gun being repositioned as quickly as possible to capitalize upon the AT grenade throw of the conscripts. Now, the 222 is actually attempting to make a flanking maneuver on the AT gun, and it's gonna get caught by an anti-tank grenade probably soon enough. Yeah, Fangish does have enough munitions, and there goes the anti-tank grenade. Gonna deal a lot of damage and take out the engine. Also, the Grenadiers are gonna be wiped out. Bet 2 Grenadiers on 242 is going down. That was definitely not the best engagement for Radesh. Fangish losing his T-70 and his AT gun crew at the expense of killing 1 Puma and 1 Grenadier squad is definitely good enough. In the south, we have, well, in the center, we have a nice engagement with the Panzer Grenadiers are going to be able to approach in close range against the guards and deal with them fairly easily. Second Panzer Grenadier squad, in fact. First Panzer Grenadier squad was nicely deployed to the north to the cutoff, actually taking over and managing to just avoid the Soviet victory in the skirmish, just being turned into a resource victory as well, which is exactly what Radesh needs, because right now he needs to have a little bit more time to replenish his forces, recapture some points, and just rebuild a force to be reckoned with. Now, he's going to go for the Ostrophen reserves. I don't feel like that is the best decision, but that will definitely help out with his capping power, and will just free up his more mainline units to deal with the enemy troops. Now, nice bundle grenade will be dodged by Fangish. Bundle grenade will destroy the house. We also have had the purchase of a 120mm mortar. I completely disagree with this because of the fact that 120mm mortar, yes, it's very good and can wipe out a lot of squads with one hits and the likes, but at the same time, it is a very random unit. You need it, you kind of have RNGs on your side to be certain that the 120mm is going to repay its price. And again, it can deal a lot of damage with these shots like these, but it's only had a couple of these good shots in the 2 or 3 minutes that it's been on the field for, and perhaps a guard squad for a similar price would have been a very, very relieving unit to buy, because of the fact that it would have helped out with dealing with the 222 and the infantry, and not just dealing with the machine gun, which is pretty much the only thing that the 120mm is good for. Now, an assault from these Pioneers is definitely going to go Ari against these conscripts, but the conscripts are taking a lot of damage from the 222. Conscripts are actually able to wipe out the Pioneers, but they will not able to recover the flamethrower. The flamethrower might actually be a good, just good tool to deal with the growing German infantry. So if he can get one of his conscript squads to actually recapture that flamethrower, it would be a really, really good play for him. Now, the guards were upgraded with PTRSs. Of course they have PTRSs. They're upgraded with DPs, so the DPs are going to be definitely fairly good against the German infantry at the medium ranges, especially going to be useful against the Panzer Grenadiers, because the Panzer Grenadiers, of course, are going to be looking to get in close against the guards, and the guards will be able to mow them down as they approach. In the south, good play by Radesh again. As I said, the Ostrophen reserves just being very useful for the capping power compared to the Grenadiers, which are going to be very needed to fight. Yeah, he's going to need to also get a second Grenadier squad, because you just cannot deal with so many Soviet infantry units with just one Grenadier squad. And as much as Panzer Grenadiers, yes, are pretty good by themselves, again, only 2 Panzer Grenadier squads are going to be outnumbered and outgunned at longer ranges. And they're also going to be very expensive to reinforce to boot, so yeah. And the Soviet were actually able to recover the flamethrower, so that is even just adding even more salt to the injury. Excellent rifle grenade, actually, from these Grenadiers. He's actually going to be able to upgrade them with light machine guns again, and he might have actually been able to wipe this guard squad had he been a little bit more aggressive with the Grenadiers. Now, the Panzer IV command tank is going to be deployed by Radesh, which is going to render his Tier 3 purchase a little bit irrelevant. Perhaps he's going to go for some Stugs later on to complement his more anti-infantry vehicle force. Now, one of these conscripts is definitely going to be for Search Sheet, but it's 2-2. 2-2 up to Vet 3 with 17 kills. Holy hell. That is a lot of kills. And yeah, that's going to be very good, even in the later stages of the game as a counter-harassment unit. Excellent rifle grenade, going to just take them to very low HP, but not enough to actually wipe out the squad. Very close and very unlucky for Radesh. Now, nice usage of the tier 2 that Fangish had built to get to tier 3, getting out the Maxim machine gun along with the AT gun that he had purchased earlier. The machine gun will be very useful in taking out some of the German infantry and also defending some key locations such as the center victory point. Now, the northern victory point was recaptured by the Panzer Grenadiers, and yeah, that's not exactly the best. It's not exactly the best thing for the Allies, because at this point, the Soviets are having a lot of troubles with map control. Again, if you can see the income situation, there are pretty much 10 more points of fuel per minute being gained by Radish, and also pretty much more than double munitions income for Radish. So right now the Soviets definitely need to be just doing their best to recapture some points, regain some resources, and rebuild their army. Now, the T-34-76 from the Tier 4 is going to be just a pivotal part of this Soviet mid-game because of the fact that the T-34 was buffed. It's now very effective against infantry, and it's also going to be very effective against this command vehicle because of the fact that the T-34 is pretty much superior in a one-on-one with the command tank. However, the command tank is superior with its own infantry support. Now, there is a Stug being built by Radish, exactly as I would have liked it to be, because of the fact that on this map, Colonia Firma, there are a lot of long-range engagements, so the Stug can use its very good accuracy and very good penetration at long range against the Soviet vehicles, and also positioned correctly, it can also prevent itself from being flanked. Of course, there are some very nasty positions in which you can put your Stug, such as this one or this one, but we will hope that Radish is not so foolish. Now, the Panzer Grenadiers should be definitely used to support the Panzer IV command tank because of the fact that the Panzer IV command tank is fairly vulnerable to enemy vehicles. Now, T-22 is also attempting to make some good damage against these conscripts that are trying to recapture the munitions points, but the T-22 is in a very precarious position because of the T-34. T-34 taking some pot shots at the Ostrup, are going to be able to panzer cross the T-34, but the T-34 was at full HP, so it's not going to be in any way snared, and it's actually going to be retreated back to be repaired. Now, I would definitely like Fangish to go for a second engineer squad and upgrading them with a minesweeper, because right now Radish and Fangish haven't been too active with their mine game, but again, mine's one game, so having more defense against that will be very important. And Radish is definitely making a mistake over here, bringing his Panzer IV way too close to the enemy lines, in between enemy infantry units, and exposing his Panzer IV to a lot of anti-tank fire and some anti-tank grenades to boot. Now, guards with PTRSs are actually going to be starting to hit in the ass, so it's going to get a lot of damage onto it, and we also have a vehicle button from the guards. Guards are going to be flanked by 2 Panzerschreck squads, and the Panzerschrecks are going to be dealing a lot of damage against T-34. T-34 should definitely be retreating as quickly as possible back to base to avoid the fire of these Panzerschrecks, and the Panzerschrecks are going to be able to destroy it. So that was a good play by Radish, but definitely really badly played by Fangish. Just way too reckless with his tank, and he should have definitely just, as soon as he spotted those Panzer Grenadiers, retreated as quickly as possible back to the base. Maybe even like try to throw a grenade with his guards to force a retreat out of the Panzer Grenadiers. Just anything to avoid the Panzer Grenadiers just chasing down the T-34, because those 4 Panzerschrecks firing at once are just such a good burst damage dealer against vehicles that you cannot ignore them. So you want to be on your toes when you're microing especially your fragile tanks as the T-34s. Now, a very small constellation prize is going to be the destruction of the T-22 by the guards, and it looks like Anura will actually come down from the conscripts trying to take the Panzerschreck from beneath the noses of the Germans, and the Stug actually attempting to run over the Soviet infantry as they were attempting to take the Panzerschreck. But unfortunately, the Stug is going to be AC grenaded. Of course, no real other units to follow up on this engagement, so the Stug is going to be able to repair in peace. Now, the Soviets do have the VP advantage right now, and they also have managed to recapture some resource points, but at the same time, it's been a very bad engagement for them. They have managed to recapture. They managed to rebuild their T-34, and the T-34 is going to be fairly good against the German infantry, especially the ones that are harassing in the north. But at the same time, the fact that the Panzer IV command tank is still alive and the Stug is still alive means that that 80 fuel that was lost with the T-34-76 dying will hurt definitely in the later stages. Now, good play with the MG42 by Radish, noticing that there were some Soviet engineers attempting to flank it and just quickly repositioning and avoiding the damage for that. Now, looks like he was actually so scared of the 120mm mortar that he decided to get his own 80mm to counter it. Now, the German mortar is very powerful because of its range and accuracy, but it's got way inferior rate of fire to the normal Soviet mortar. Of course, with the 120mm, the roles are kind of reversed. 120mm has slower rate of fire than the German mortar, which means that in a 1v1 between the German mortar crew and the 120mm, the German mortar, despite its cost difference and its generally weaker rounds, has a pretty good chance to actually win the 1v1 duel. However, at this point in the game, it doesn't really matter which mortar is more powerful. It just matters which one can provide more support to their troops. Now, good play with the Panzer Grenadiers to force back the T-34 from the Panzer IV command tank. Panzer IV command tank also utilizing the Panzer Tactician ability to avoid taking some extra shots from the T-34. Now, the Panzer Grenadiers are attempting to make their own advance, and they will actually be very lucky to not take any losses from the mine. I feel like that was a bit of a bug, or perhaps the AT gun shots detonating it from... Oh no, that was the 120mm mortar detonating it, I feel like. Yeah, it probably would have been the 120mm mortar detonating mine before the German troops were actually close enough to be damaged by it. In the south, we also have a Grenadier squad attempting to capture some points. Unfortunately, it's going to find some ready conscripts that are vet-free and in pretty much no cover, close range, going to be able to easily wipe out that vet-free Grenadier with LMGs, and that's definitely not what you want to happen if you're playing as the Germans in the later stages of the game. Those vet-free Grenadiers were the mainstay of his army in terms of anti-infantry killing power, and now they're gone. So this will be a very big, very big problem for Radish. Again, the fact that he's losing those veteran squads is not boding well for his infantry force, but at the same time, he's got a vehicle superiority. He's got 200 fuel just sitting in the bank. So as soon as he decides what he wants to do with that fuel, he's going to be able to do a lot of work. Now, the Soviets have gone for Tier 4. The Germans so far haven't decided on anything. And if I can... Really? You're going to be like that? Sometimes I hate the controls. Really? Please. Oh, come on. I just want to see... Oh, okay. Good. He hasn't really upgraded the battle phrase free yet, despite the fact that he's got so much fuel. Now, I feel like that's a mistake because of the fact that as mobile defense doctrine, you have a lot of sort of earlier game vehicles that you can call off from off map. So just having those earlier game vehicles will help you out if you have just the resources that you can go for Tier 4, and going for the Tier 4 is going to help you out in that, unlike some other doctrines, mobile defense doesn't really offer you any late game options. So perhaps going for a Broom Bear or a Panther would be pretty good for the German player. The Panther would, of course, be the more conservative choice to try and just deal with the T-34s and also be very mobile. Now, unfortunately, Radish is making a mistake over here. He's sending his command tank out without repairs, and that's definitely a very big mistake because of the fact that this T-34 can easily two-shot this command tank, and he's going to be very lucky that Thangish doesn't utilize attack round to try and defeat this Panzer IV once and for all. Now, the Maxim machine gun in the center is going to be able to easily deal with these Pioneers, and along with the 120mm motor, almost wiping out that Pioneer squad. Now, there's 2 Pioneers on the field for Radish, and that's probably good enough for now. I would definitely look into getting another Pioneer squad soon enough, though, if he decides to go for more vehicles, which I feel like is the way to go, considering how much fuel he's got. At the same time, he's definitely going to be hard-pressed to not go into this house. Very lucky for him that the T-34 was not able to get one last round in before he was able to retreat. Though, very much to his credit, retreated quickly enough to escape. I was definitely expecting him to forget about that one Ostruppen. And again, that's an Ostruppen with no LMGs, so that's not going to be too big of a loss if he loses that. However, it's still best to not lose that because of the fact that it adds a lot of map control and capping power to your army. Now, the Stug is definitely going to be hard-pressed to deal with this vet-free Panzerschreck conscript. Looks like Fangish actually went for another conscript squad. This is definitely a new one, and I feel like that's a bad idea. Definitely a guard would have been a better choice at this point in the game. Now, the conscript is going to be able to 80 grenadiers one Stug, but there's nothing to follow up again. So it's going to be a fairly wasted effort. Of course, Fangish does have a lot of munitions, so it's not exactly that big of an issue if that happens. I would definitely like to see him go for Molotov cocktails as the next purchase because of the fact that Radish is using buildings so effectively that having the Molotov cocktails to flush out the Germans from these buildings, of course wooden buildings that catch on fire really easily, is going to be really good for him. Now, this machine gun is going to be in a very big danger from the Panzer IV Command Tank. Panzer IV Command Tank almost completely wiping it, but the MG is going to be able to retreat. In the south, nice play by Radish, once again harassing and taking over the south side of the map. At the same time, some conscripts or some engineers actually going to take the northern VP. VP situation is fairly even. Our German player has 210 VPs to the Soviet 327, so no player is really in too much of a hurry. Of course, if the Soviet player can actually get a triple cap going, as he might be attempting to accomplish, he's going to be able to pretty much wipe out the German supply of VPs in about 6.5 minutes. So Radish should definitely watch out for that. So he's going to be very, very hard-pressed to keep control of these VPs. Now, good retreat just after he managed to capture the point. And also with the T-34, he's going to be able to defend against these Panzer Grenadiers because of the fact that they weren't in any way able to surprise the T-34. Of course, there's also a Puma in the south along with a Stug. I feel like the Puma was a mistake because of the fact that, I mean, he could have gone for tier 4 and gotten out a Panther. So I'm not really sure why the Puma, when the Panther is pretty much all that the Puma is, except survivable and much more effective in general. Now, T-34-85 is actually on the field from guard motor coordination. The T-34 in the south is actually going to go down from a... what killed it? Because it was slowed down by an anti-tank round of some kind. Yeah, it looks like a Panzerfaust, along with the Puma chasing it down with the Stug, was able to easily take out the T-34. So that was a good play by Radish. At the same time, there is some pretty good plays going on in the north as well. T-34-85 is going to be able to chase down this Panzer IV Command Tank, along with a marked vehicle being used by Fangish. Again, doubling the damage that is dealt upon this vehicle. And it's going to be probably the end of this Panzer IV Command Tank. Very unlucky, actually, that T-34-85 does not penetrate the round against Panzer IV Command Tank. And again, another round misses, or rather bounces. That's definitely very unlucky for the T-34-85. T-34-85 misses the last round because it was moving away from these Panzerschrecks. Very unlucky for Fangish. I would definitely be raging in all chat if I was him. Damn, very unlucky. But at the same time, I feel like he should have taken his tanks and concentrated them. Separating them like that didn't yield the results that he wanted because of the fact that the enemy concentrated his vehicles, or rather his anti-vehicle vehicles, if that makes any sense, in one spot, whereas he kind of just spread them out and had one tank in the south, one tank in the north. Now, the Puma is going to be able to chase down this T-34-85 with impunity because of the fact that there are no mines and there are no conscript squads of anti-tank grenades in the area. Again, spreading your units around sometimes is useful, but sometimes is a bit of a death sentence. And we also have a second, or rather a normal Panzer IV being built by Radish. Now, the normal Panzer IV will be very good against the Soviet infantry squads, but at the same time it will suffer against the T-34-85s later on if Fangish fancies more T-34-85s, of course, which is not exactly guaranteed at this point after the failure that was the first T-34-85. At the same time, he was able to get a bit of a VP victory, if that's any consolation for him, taking down the Germans to 130 and still having a nice 2-0 lead. Again, the Germans don't really have that much map presence, despite their tactical victories. So that is a bit of a problem. And again, I kind of dissed on the Puma, but it definitely proved me wrong. 2 kills on a T-34 and a T-34-85 is definitely good enough for a Puma to pay for itself. Again, it was kind of lucky that there weren't many Soviet anti-tank defenses to just help out their tanks. Like, for example, mines or anti-tank guns hidden. Now, this anti-tank gun was actually alive this entire time, but it wasn't really brought to any of the engagements. And I feel like that was a very big mistake for Fangish because of the fact that he needed this anti-tank gun. He would have been able to at least use it to get some extra damage down on this Panzer IV command tank, thus taking it down. Or perhaps he would have been able to use it to support the T-34 itself, thus perhaps scaring off the German vehicles. Again, sometimes victory hangs on the balance by a thread, so having that just one extra unit sometimes can save your engagement, and by saving your engagement can save your game as a whole. Now, again, this time the AT gun will be brought up, and actually he used a merge on the anti-tank gun from this one vet-free conscript squad, and the vet-free conscript will help out the anti-tank gun in trying to take out this Panzer IV command tank. Panzer IV command tank very close to dying, and the conscript will go in for an anti-tank grenade. Unfortunately, he did not try for the attack round snipe on the Panzer up Panzer IV, and that was definitely a mistake. He could have probably taken it down with a nice Panzer shot if he had just used attack round. That was a very, very unfortunate moment for Fangish, and right now he's sinking deeper and deeper into the quicksand that his deficiency in terms of later game units. The enemy has 4 vehicles to his 1. He went for an Su-85, and I feel like that is a big mistake because of the fact that the Su-85 is going to be hard-pressed to deal with pretty much all of the German vehicles except the Panzer IV command tank and the Stuka Free. The Stuka Free being pretty much the smaller brother of the Su-85 in terms of tank destroyers, because of the fact that it's pretty much the same vehicle in terms of usage, but without the spawning ability and with a little bit less penetration. Of course, the penetration doesn't really matter when you're facing the Soviets because of their weak armor. Now, Panzerschrecks are going to be very, very effective against this Su-85, which is another reason why getting this SU is a bad idea. And I feel like getting a Katyusha and a T-34-85 would have been the better decision. He would have had enough resources for them both, so I feel like that would have been good. And this is another reason why the Su-85 is a problem, and why I said that, why I didn't say that it can deal with the Puma, because the Puma, with its excellent mobility, can easily just run around it and circle strafe the Su-85 without any kind of problems. Now, the Puma is probably going to be sacrificed to this, but at the same time, the Puma is a 270 manpower and 80 fuel vehicle, whereas the Su-85 is, if I can get the Soviets, 130 fuel and 350 manpower. So, again, a very worthy trade, even if it dies, which it isn't even guaranteed because of the fact that this Panzer IV command tank might be coming in to assist along with some pioneers. Now, definitely a problem. Also, we do have another engagement in the south. Soviet player was actually able to take the cutoff point. The Panzer IV was actually in the south VP this entire time. Radish definitely scared of the Soviet player going for his VPs and trying to win by VP. And I feel like that was a mistake, keeping the Panzer IV down there during that whole engagement. It's a bit like the anti-tank gun for the Soviet player earlier on. But at the same time, I understand why he did it. Now, the Panzer IV should definitely be brought up to the north to actually help out in this fight. And the Puma was actually engaged by some more guards, and it's going to pop Panzer Tactician, but it's going to actually get out of Panzer Tactician to try and get back to base. Of course, this is going to mean that the Panzerschreck plus the PTRSs and the anti-tank grenade, the RPG-41, are going to be able to easily take out the Puma. So despite the fact that that Puma was pretty much a successful round, it's going to go down. And I feel like that is a good thing for Radish because of the fact that it's going to free up some extra pop cap, which he used for some Ostrupen reserves, which is actually a better idea than it looks. Of course, this Panzer IV command tank should definitely be retreated as quickly as possible, perhaps even popping Panzer Tactician. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the munitions to pop Panzer Tactician, and so he's going to go down. Unfortunately, a Vet 2 Panzer IV going to go down for pretty much nothing, and that was definitely a very big mistake. He should have retreated back to base. Again, you never want to be sort of overzealous with your vehicles, and you always want to be cautious with them whenever they are damaged, especially with damaged engines, you want to retreat as far back as possible to be cautious. Now, good usage actually of the tank to have heavy cover for his infantry and capping sort of under the cover of the tank. This is a neat little trick that not many people utilize. So again, nice usage of that to actually help the CoH2 capture the center VP, and also using the Panzer IV to take out the machine gun with some nice RNG shots. Now, this machine gun in the south is actually not placed very well because of the fact that it's not in the line of sight of the victory point, which is why he's not able to do anything with that. Now, the VP situation is definitely the biggest threat that the German player has to face right now. In terms of units, the Soviet player is down to 3 conscript squads and 1 guard, which is not that much compared to what the Germans have. The Germans, though, are inferior in terms of infantry, despite their vehicle superiority, which is why the VP situation is the most important thing to keep an eye out for, because of the fact that the Germans have inferior capping potential compared to the Soviets. Now, these MG42 Ostgruppen actually have 21 kills, but they're still going to be no match for the flamethrower conscripts. Flamethrower conscripts, though, are going to be pretty much eaten by the Panzer IV, so it's not too big of an issue. Now, T-3485 will be built by Fangish, and again, rushed onto the field without much put behind it, which is a bit of a problem because of the fact that he might lose it. Again, one big problem for Radish is also the fact that he doesn't really have enough munitions to place down mines. If he had enough munitions to place down mines, I would have really recommended him to do that, which, again, gives no excuse to Fangish for not placing any mines. Again, mines win games. And so it looks like a bit of a lull in the fighting will ensue, so we'll talk a little bit more about what each player should be doing differently. Now, Fangish finally went back onto the path of medium vehicles, which is definitely the path that he should be taking because of the fact that, again, tank destroyers, not exactly the best all-around unit that you want to make the final push when the enemy has a lot of mobile units like these Panzer IVs. So that was the main mistake that Fangish was having earlier on. Now, definitely not placing enough mines is also a mistake, and not going for a minesweeper engineer is also a mistake, because what if Radish decided to place down some telemines? You'd want definitely a minesweeper. Otherwise, you would be very much vulnerable to mines, and you would lose your T-3485 like an idiot. Now, also, recapture this Maxim should be a priority for him. He did manage to regain the anti-tank dose, which was even more important than the Maxim. Now, the Maxim is going to be very important, and once he recaptures it, I feel like he should definitely make a big push towards the south with the T-3485, 2 conscript squads, and a Maxim. The Maxim being left later in the south to hold the VP, along with perhaps a couple of mines over here and the Panzerschreck squad. Now, why the Panzerschreck squad? Because, of course, if some Panzer IV decides, oh, I'm going to take out the Maxim, you'd want the Panzerschreck plus the anti-tank grenades to just make sure that that Panzer IV will have his hopes crushed mercilessly. Should definitely be very careful actually of the 1cm mortar. 1cm mortar, being alive this entire game, has managed to actually pay for itself in the end with 20 kills. However, I still feel like it could have been a mistake, and it was a mistake for most of the game. Now, this one's conscript squad with Vetfree and the Flamethrower will go down to this Panzer IV if it chases. So I feel like Radish should definitely chase this one conscript, but he's not going to do that, and I feel like that is a big mistake. Now, in terms of the German mistakes, I feel like the fuel usage is definitely big among them. He's just getting too many Pumas. At one point, Pumas are going to stop being worth it, and I feel like getting the tier 3, or the battle phase 3 and tier 4 is going to be the key to victory later on if the Soviets can manage to get out a big armored force and keeping it alive for a little bit while, you know, and not really losing it to nothing like he has done so far. So the German player actually almost getting a triple cap is going to be very good for him because of the fact that he's got all these Ostrupen should definitely actually bring this machine gun back onto the field, okay? So he will finally notice. At this point, it's just a game of endurance. Who can just outlast the other person in terms of resources, but also in terms of sort of attention and micro? Because, yes, in a 1v1, after something like 30-40 minutes, your attention span starts to drop. Your, just in general, ability to react quickly to things is going to be lower. So the player that can sort of gather his forces in coherent ways will be victorious, because of the fact that even just doing that is not exactly guaranteed in this later stages of the game. Now, again, this is exactly what I'm talking about. These two squads were engaging each other, and they were the only squads having an engagement in the entire map. But at the same time, the Panzer IV was here, and it did not move into any kind of way, to actually assist his infantry. Why? Because Radish was already busy microing something else, and he didn't have the attention span to actually micro Panzer IV, despite the fact that it was the only one engagement happening around the map. And that's just one of the big problems of newer players, but also sort of more experienced players. So there's no shame to have mistakes like that. Another Oath-Trooper squad gonna go down in the center, perhaps? Doesn't look like the bodies are in the center. Perhaps from the 120mm mortar combined with the T-3485. T-3485 is gonna be ambushed by some Panzer Grenadiers, and the Panzer Grenadiers do have vet-free. And actually, one of the Panzer Grenadier squad went down. That was a very big loss for Radish, and I feel like, yeah, that was a bit of a big loss, and it definitely feel like he should not re-upgrade his second squad with more Panzerschrecks, unless he finds, for example, free Soviet tanks later on in the game. Now, he's going to be pushing with his Panzer Grenadiers against these conscripts, and I feel like the fact that he hasn't upgraded the Panzer Grenadiers will help him out very greatly, because of the fact that the conscripts vanilla are going to be very vulnerable to the Panzer Grenadiers. Now, the Oath-Trooper are going to be very good meat shields to actually capture this middle point under fire. At the same time, in the south, we do have the Stug attempting to defend the southern VP against this vet-free conscript squad with a flamethrower, and this Panzer IV again idle. It's just so very frustrating to watch this Panzer IV just be idle in these engagements where the Panzer IV could do all the difference. It could definitely make the difference, especially in the center where this vet-free Panzer Grenadier squad with Panzerschrecks is going to be wiped out if he's not very lucky like that. Very, very lucky to escape with his life. Again, finally going to be bringing down his Panzer IV, but he's not Soviet, so he cannot use his Panzer IV to cap at vet 1. So again, he's going to need to wait until one of his Oath-Trooper squads are replenished back at base to recapture the point. One very big mistake that he's making is that he should definitely bring this Panzer IV to just fight. If he had done that, the Panzer IV would have been much more useful in this entire game. Now, Tangish has also made a mistake. He's built a T-3476 for some reason, despite the fact that T-3485s pretty much... Well, okay, right. That's just my experience from a previous patches speaking. After the patch, the T-3476 does have the advantage of having the buff machine gun, and the T-3485 doesn't have the buff machine gun. So, okay, I feel like the T-3476 purchase makes a little bit more sense now in that regard. Now, anti-tank grenade is going to go down on this Puma, along with T-34 shots. Again, the T-34, while kind of vulnerable to the Puma at long range, if the T-34 and the Puma are just shooting each other once and retreating, the T-3476 does have superior DPS and superior HP, so in a one-on-one fight, it's going to do well. And again, the Panzer IV is going to go down for Radish, and the fact that he didn't go for a tier 4 and didn't use his fuel is definitely showing at this point. This Panzer IV was the only vehicle on the field for the Germans, despite the fact that the Germans had much superior fuel reserves to the Allies. And again, these tanks not really being brought up to the front to fight in these crucial engagements later on in this just late game. I'm not sure what is up with this and why these tanks are being held back. If just this T-3485 had been on the field, it could have attempted a just crushing maneuver on these Panzer Grenadiers and prevented them from killing the T-3476. I just don't understand why these tanks are not being brought up. And again, good play by Radish sending his Panzer Grenadiers to capture the southern VP, and that is going to allow him to have a little bit of a breathing space to rebuild his forces while his enemy is just regrouping. And again, the T-3485 is going to be sent in to the north. Why? It's, well, of course, it's actually a good idea because there's an MG42 over here, but again, it could have been used so much better in the earlier engagement. I just feel like these players are just throwing their chances for no real reason. Again, Maxim machine gun, very close to the action, not being brought up to actually participate in it. And again, also a lot of units, I feel like, just being kind of idle. Does seem like it. These console squads have no chance against the Panzer Grenadiers. Of course, we do also have another T-34 being purchased by Fangish. That will be very good because of the fact that, again, Reddish doesn't have any usage for his fuel because he hasn't upgraded Tier 4, he hasn't upgraded Battle Phase 3, he didn't decide to just have any worthy units to use his fuel with. He's been wasting all his manpower on Ostrupen, which partially is justified because of the fact that he needed the map control, but I feel like getting too many of them has depleted his manpower reserves a little bit too much, and means that he doesn't have enough manpower to actually use the fuel that he has. Now, very good play over here using the attack round feature of the Stug to actually shoot the T-34 from the safety of the hedgerow, so he's going to be able to easily take out the T-34. Good play. Very excellent play, and again, even better because he was able to actually bring his unit where was needed. In the center, he needed that Stug to take out the T-34. He brought it up, and he was able to take out the T-34 and regain the armored, at least the armor parity with the Soviet player. Despite the fact that he had lost so much and he had pretty much nothing left, he's still in the game because of the timely play with the Stug. Again, if only it had been done earlier with the Panzer IV, he would have been in a much better position. And I feel like at this point, the main thing that Radish do is just throw away his Ostrupen and just suicide missions to take the fuel points and the victory points, just slow down the enemy, and by doing that, buy himself some time and also some manpower, not much needed manpower, to get some more Panzer IVs on in the field, because of the fact that at this point, he doesn't have the time simply to upgrade the Tier 4 and go for a Panther or a Brummbär, because of the fact that at this point, if the Soviet player gets a triple cap, he has less than a minute left to recapture one of the points and avoid defeat. And still, with a double cap, he has about 3 minutes. Not exactly 3 minutes, a little less than 3 minutes, 2 minutes and a half-ish, to just achieve parity or superiority in terms of EVs to avoid defeat. And again, Soviet infantry superiority is really telling, and I feel like part of that is because he went for too many Ostrupen and not enough Grenadiers. Again, as I said earlier, losing those Grenadiers means that you lose the infantry superiority because, yes, the Panzer Grenadiers may be good, but, again, long-range engagements, they suffer, especially against guards with DPs and Maxims. And also the fact that he lost that veterancy and he just upgraded the Panzer Grenadiers with Panzerflex, also depleted his anti-infantry reserves. And again, Stug, as I said earlier, this spot is not very lucky for Stugs because of the fact that you can be flanked from 3 directions, or rather even 4 directions at once. And again, very lucky for him that Fangish doesn't know what attack run is, finally realizes what attack run is, takes out the Stug, and I feel like this is over. There's just no units the Germans have left to deal with these two T-3485s, or rather this T-3485 and the T-3476. And again, the Ostrupen trying to make an assault to the center VP, but they're going to be stopped by the guards with DPs. The Germans recaptured the north while the Soviets captured the south, but still, it's not going to be enough. There's only 17 VPs left, and whatever attempts the German player makes is going to be just broken by the treads of the T-3485s. And I feel like I talked enough about the mistakes of the players that, because I had enough time in the laws of the action, that I won't really talk about anything else after the game is over. So I'll just let the game run. in these last few moments while the Germans bleed out in a very, very painful manner. Actually, never mind. Maybe they will survive for just a little bit. The AT gun will actually do a barrage attempt to save the VPs. And actually, with the the T-34 will go down with the Puma, going just toe-to-toe with the Puma. Very lucky, actually, to survive. Well, the Puma, very lucky to survive long enough to actually take out the T-34. And I feel like the conscript standing in this center VP will be pretty much a rock upon which the Germans will be broken, and nothing else will get through. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the cast. I hope you learned something from it. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon.